My sister and I got home earlier than usual, only to overhear my girlfriend, Lauren, giving advice to her younger sister, Mia. "Want to know how I got my boyfriend's uncle to fund my MBA?" she said, her voice carrying through the half-open door. My sister gripped my arm, halting me in the hallway. From where we stood, we could hear every word of Lauren's conversation with Mia. "Uncle David wouldn't pay for my degree," Lauren said confidently. "So I made it happen." Mia sounded curious, asking, "How'd you pull that off?" "Simple," Lauren replied. "I taught Sophie exactly what to say about that holiday party." My stomach dropped. Sophie was her little cousin, only 6 at the time. I felt a chill run through me. "Look, I've got it all saved," Lauren said, pulling out her phone. "Here's the script I gave Sophie." Told her to point at the doll's private parts when they asked where he touched her. She swiped through her phone, showing Mia more. I wrote out her whole story. "He said it was our secret game. He touched my panties." She laughed, like it was some clever trick. "Kids that young don't talk like that on their own. You have to drill it into them until they believe it's real." Mia sounded horrified. "You mean you brainwashed Sophie?" "Worked like a charm," Lauren said, smirking. She showed Mia something else on her phone. "Check this out. Bank transfer. $250,000 from David Marshall." She chuckled again, proud of herself. "That's how you know you nailed it." She kept scrolling. "Here's Sophie's therapy notes from last month. 14 years old, cutting herself because of childhood trauma. Perfect little victim. Her whole identity is built on something I made up. That trauma paid for our house and my degree." I couldn't hold back anymore. I stormed into the room, my sister right behind me, slipping her police badge into her pocket, something Lauren didn't know about. "You ruined my uncle's life with a lie?" I shouted. Lauren spun around, her face going pale. "How long have you been?" "David took his own life," I said, my voice steady but ice cold. 2 years ago. Left a note saying he couldn't handle everyone thinking he was a predator." Lauren stammered. "I didn't know he'd, what? Just suffer forever instead of dying." I stepped closer, watching her back into the wall. "His daughter believed your lie. She told him to stay away from her kids. He never met his grandkids because she thought he was a monster." Lauren's hands were trembling now. "That's not on me," she whispered. "You created the lie that killed him," my sister said, stepping forward, her presence making Lauren shrink even more. "Sophie's cutting herself, and you're proud of that?" Lauren's face went white as a ghost. "Our family fell apart," I said. "My Aunt Clara still writes apology letters to David's widow for defending him. Uncle Tom won't speak to her for not standing by him. Cousins picking sides at every family gathering. You know what my grandma's last words were? At least David can't hurt any more kids. She died believing her son was a monster." "I was young. I didn't think," Lauren tried to say. "You were 23 with a detailed plan." I cut her off. "You just showed us the text where you coached a kindergartner." I kept going, watching her sink into a chair. "The community center? 400 kids lost their after-school program when David's reputation tanked. The crisis hotline he funded? Gone. How many kids didn't get help because you wanted tuition money?" She was shaking hard now. "It was just supposed to be money," she mumbled. "From a man whose life you destroyed?" I shot back. "My mom hasn't slept a full night in years. She stood by her brother-in-law and lost her book club, her church group. They called her an enabler." My sister spoke softly but firmly. "The forensic videos of Sophie are evidence. A 6-year-old describing an assault you invented. That's a federal crime." Lauren looked between us, desperate. "You can't prove. You just showed Mia your proof," I said. "The texts coaching Sophie. The bank transfers. The emails to your lawyer. You documented your own crime." I laughed bitterly. "The engagement? You let me propose in the house David's money bought, with a ring his death paid for, while we visited his grave to pay respects. You watched me cry at his headstone, knowing you caused it. His son, Ethan, dropped out of Stanford to support his mom," I continued. "She gave David everything in the divorce to keep their kids away from the predator. She's working 3 jobs at 62 because of your lies." Lauren was sobbing now, looking small and broken. Please what?" I snapped. "Don't tell Sophie her trauma's fake. Don't tell David's family he was innocent. Don't report the federal crime you just admitted to." Lauren stood, legs wobbly, trying to leave. "I need to go." "Sit down," my sister said calmly, pulling out her phone. Lauren's eyes widened as she noticed the police academy photo on the side table. "You're a cop?" Her voice cracked. Detective Marshall graduated last month, my sister said. Everything you just said, coaching Sophie, the extortion, the wire fraud, it's all recorded. You said you got a job in marketing, Lauren stammered. I never said marketing, my sister replied. You never asked. I stepped back. You made a 6-year-old believe she was molested. You drove an innocent man to suicide. My sister was already dialing. Sophie's about to learn her trauma was a lie. David's family will know he was innocent. And you're about to face real consequences. But there was something we didn't know about Lauren. People like her always have a backup plan. Lauren's face went from pale to ashen when she realized my sister was a detective. She started edging toward the door, muttering about needing to handle something urgent. My sister moved fast, blocking the exit with her body, telling Lauren to stay put while we dealt with this properly. Lauren's eyes darted around like a cornered animal, but there was no way out. My sister pulled out her phone and started recording, explaining that this was now a formal matter requiring documentation. She told me to sit on the couch and not touch anything while she called her supervisor to report what we'd just heard. Lauren's hands shook as she realized how deep this was getting. Suddenly, Lauren lunged for her phone on the coffee table. I was faster, grabbing it and holding it out of reach. She started crying, begging me to give it back, saying she needed to delete something critical before it was too late. My sister took the phone from me, telling Lauren it was evidence now, and trying to destroy it would only make things worse. She called her supervisor, keeping one eye on Lauren, and reported a confession involving a federal crime against a minor. Mia, who'd been silent in the corner, looked like she might be sick. She whispered that Lauren had mentioned a backup plan if she ever got caught. Something was set to send automatically from her laptop if she didn't stop it in time, something that could hurt more people. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. David killed himself 2 years ago, I said, my voice shaking. He left a note saying he couldn't live with everyone thinking he hurt a kid when he didn't. Lauren stumbled back into a chair, her hands trembling worse than before. My sister kept her composure, but told Lauren to stay seated and not touch any devices. She stepped into the hallway to make another call, likely for backup or the DA's office, but stayed where she could see us. Lauren tried to stand again, her voice rising as she claimed she had rights and didn't have to stay without a lawyer. My sister returned and calmly explained that while Lauren wasn't under arrest yet, leaving would be a bad move given her recorded confession. I texted my cousin, who lived near David's widow, asking them to check on her before this hit social media or gossip chains. She deserved to hear the truth about her husband in person, not through some viral post. About an hour later, 2 plainclothes detectives arrived. My sister recused herself from the investigation, but stayed as a witness to what we'd heard. They asked Lauren if she'd consent to them taking her phone as evidence. After they explained a warrant would take longer and look worse for her, she reluctantly agreed. The detectives gloved up and bagged the phone while one started taking our statements. Lauren's face drained of color as she watched them handle the phone containing proof of her crimes. Mia pulled me aside and whispered that Lauren had mentioned emails set to send to our whole family if she didn't log in every few days. The emails would claim I forced Lauren to lie about David, painting me as the villain protecting a predator. Mia's voice shook as she admitted she was terrified of what else Lauren might have planned. My phone rang. It was my mom, crying. She'd heard from a relative that something was up with David's case, and the police were involved. I told her I couldn't explain yet, but that David was innocent, and we had proof. The call ended with her sobbing, overwhelmed by the news. The detectives questioned Lauren in our living room, where she admitted to coaching Sophie, but insisted she never meant for David to die. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she said, her voice breaking. She claimed she was desperate for money for school and didn't think through the consequences. Mia stepped forward and told the detectives their family had been broke for years after their dad lost his job. Lauren saw David's wealth, his big house, fancy cars, and got bitter about their struggles. Mia showed them screenshots from Lauren's search history, how to coach a child's testimony, and making accusations stick, dated months before the holiday party. The detectives spent hours collecting evidence, photographing Mia's screenshots, and taking statements. Around midnight, they told Lauren she was free to go for now, but couldn't leave town and should expect charges soon. They gave her a form warning against contacting witnesses or destroying evidence. Lauren's face was blank as she called someone for a ride, whispering she needed a top-tier lawyer for federal cases. The next morning, my sister, now officially off the case, wrote her report as a witness, carefully noting her recusal. She told me the case looked strong but warned it would be a long road, as these cases are complex. Her phone rang. It was Sarah Klein from the DA's office, asking for all the initial evidence. On speaker, Sarah sounded cautious but intrigued, stressing the need for an airtight case given the sensitivity of false accusation claims. She asked about the recording's quality and whether Lauren had been read her rights, satisfied when my sister clarified Lauren wasn't in custody during the confession. I tried calling Ethan, David's son, but got his voicemail. I hung up, unsure how to summarize this in a message. Telling him his dad died innocent felt too heavy for a voicemail. Meanwhile, Mia was searching Lauren's room and found a shoebox under the bed with handwritten notes of Sophie's coach testimony, complete with edits and instructions on what to emphasize. There were also articles about similar cases, with highlighted tips on avoiding detection. Mia, scared Lauren might retaliate, sent the evidence to an anonymous tip line the detectives mentioned. She included photos of the notes, scripts, and a timeline Lauren made for coaching Sophie. The tip line confirmed receipt and passed it to the investigators. Days later, the detectives got a judge to sign off on a subpoena for Lauren's bank records. They told my sister the $250,000 transfer from David to Lauren would leave a clear paper trail across multiple banks. The next day, Sarah Klein came to our house, spreading out evidence on the dining table: texts, bank transfer screenshots, and the confession transcript. She outlined charges like wire fraud, since the money crossed state lines, extortion, and conspiracy involving a minor. She was confident the recording would hold up, as Lauren wasn't in custody when she spoke. That night, I replayed Lauren's confession on my phone, her laughter about ruining David's life hitting me like a punch. I wanted to smash something, but forced myself to calm down. Anger wouldn't bring David back. Only justice could honor him now. I drove to David's widow's apartment, my hands shaking on the wheel. She looked exhausted from another long shift at one of her 3 jobs. At her kitchen table, I explained everything. Her face shifted from confusion to shock to grief as she learned her husband was innocent. She cried, asking why Sophie would lie. I explained how Lauren coached a 6-year-old to believe it happened, her young mind unable to separate truth from fiction. She held my hand, asking if the police knew. I assured her the DA was handling it personally. The next day, Sarah met with Mia at the courthouse, where Mia spent hours detailing Lauren's coaching sessions with Sophie, showing calendar entries and recalling phrases like, "say it tickled" when they ask. Mia signed a sworn statement matching the coaching texts from Lauren's phone. A specialist, Dr. Emily Carter, joined the case to handle Sophie's false memories. She explained that Sophie's brain genuinely believed the trauma was real, as young minds can't always distinguish coached memories from reality. Rushing to tell her the truth could cause serious harm, so they'd need months to gently unravel it. Sarah pulled up Sophie's original forensic interview from 8 years ago. The 6-year-old used terms like inappropriate contact and private areas, unnatural for her age. She kept glancing off camera, as if checking for approval, and counted on her fingers when listing the 3 times it happened. The language matched Lauren's scripts perfectly, especially phrases like, "he said it was our special secret." Lauren's lawyer tried to claim she was manipulated by an older relative into making the accusations. Sarah dismissed it, pointing to the spreadsheet Lauren kept tracking her coaching sessions with Sophie. The ethics team decided to work with Sophie's therapist to slowly address memory inconsistencies, avoiding further trauma. Family drama erupted as cousins and aunts heard about the investigation. Some accused me of defending a predator for inheritance money, while others refused to believe they'd misjudged David. The family group chat became a battleground, with relatives blocking each other over the new evidence. Mia found a burner phone in Lauren's closet with audio recordings of her practicing with Sophie. In one, Lauren corrected Sophie. "No, honey, say he touched your panties, not your skirt." Another had Lauren drilling Sophie on the timeline until she could recite it perfectly. The digital forensics team recovered deleted files, including a memo where Lauren laughed about fooling everyone, even joking that David's weird uncle vibe made it easy to sell the lie. Dr. Carter met with me to discuss Sophie's future. She warned that Sophie's identity as a trauma survivor was deeply ingrained, and learning it was false could shatter her sense of self. Healing would take years, as her brain couldn't easily unlearn the memories. Sarah filed initial charges for wire fraud and extortion to pressure Lauren for a plea deal while protecting Sophie from a public trial. Lauren's lawyer fought to suppress the phone evidence, arguing my sister's recording was illegal without Miranda rights. Sarah countered that Lauren wasn't in custody and spoke freely, so the judge would likely allow it. The hearing was set for a month out, leaving us in limbo. I wrote a letter to Sophie I'd never send, apologizing for how she was used as a pawn in Lauren's scheme. I wrote that her strength in surviving wasn't her fault, even if the memories weren't real. It felt like a small way to process my own grief. Internal Affairs investigated my sister to ensure she followed protocol. After a tense 3-hour interview, they cleared her, confirming she'd done everything right. Mia, meanwhile, found a document on Lauren's laptop blaming me for forcing her to lie about David. Metadata showed it was written weeks before our confrontation, proving she planned to frame me if caught. The bank records confirmed the $250,000 transfer from David to Lauren, used for our house and her MBA. David had taken a loan against his retirement to pay her, destroying his future for her lie. I met with David's widow again, who cried over photos of David with their kids, struggling to process how she believed the worst about him. Sarah filed formal charges: wire fraud, extortion, and conspiracy involving a minor. The detectives arrested Lauren at her parents' house at dawn. Through the window, I saw her mom freeze as officers cuffed Lauren in her pajamas. At the bail hearing, Sarah presented the scheduled emails and witness tampering attempts, leading to a $500,000 bail and a no-contact order. Lauren's lawyer pushed for a plea deal, offering to admit to coaching Sophie and paying restitution if charges related to Sophie's trauma were limited. Sarah agreed to focus on financial crimes to clear David's name without dragging Sophie through court. I worked with David's widow on a memorial statement, emphasizing his youth programs and the tragedy of false accusations, carefully avoiding Sophie's identity. The community board voted to reopen David's youth center, using restitution funds and new donations, naming it the David Marshall Youth Hub. At a family gathering by David's grave, relatives grappled with their guilt. Some apologized to his headstone, while others struggled to accept the truth. Ethan, David's son, flew in, hugging his mom as she told the grave their family was finally cleared. 6 months later, Sophie's therapy showed progress, with her questioning small memory details. Lauren was sentenced to 8 years and ordered to pay $400,000 in restitution for David's widow, Sophie's therapy, and the youth center. Kaylee moved in with a supportive aunt, started college, and continued therapy to heal from her sister's betrayal. I sold the house and ring, donating the funds to David's youth programs through a new foundation, Truth from Lies, to help others hurt by false accusations. The youth center reopened with 300 kids enrolled, and Ethan joined the board to honor his dad. The truth didn't erase the pain, but it started the healing process for a family and community torn apart by one woman's lies.